My walls are
Love it.
red. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about your new movie, Squealer.
Mhm.
Interesting name. Where did that kind of come from? Is it just because it has to do with the pig?
Uh, I honestly can't remember. Do you remember how we came about it?
Yeah, we tossed around names quite a bit and we landed on that. And then we loved the fact that there's from the Orson Welles, it's a character that I don't, it came out. I don't even know if it came out of you or me, but when it came out, we were both like, yes, that's it. It just fit.
Awesome, awesome. So tell our readers a little bit about the story.
This is about a pig farmer turned serial killer, and about a social worker and a local cop who start to unravel some of the disappearing women in town that spiral into a horrific story that is inspired by true events. It is just inspired. There was an actual serial killer named Robert Pickton, who some of the true crime fans out there might have heard about. And we were so impacted by the story when we heard it that this was the basis for the storyline. But then we wanted to really take some liberties, lean into the horror genre a bit. And also we wanted to just be very mindful and respectful of, because it is a true story that's not really from that long ago. We did not want to tell it as an entirely true story, to be respectful to any potential victims, families of victims, anybody who was associated with the story. So it's a bit of a hybrid between true crime and horror.
I got you. I got you. So y'all both have a very, very strong career in stunt work.
Yeah.
What made this the film to try on other hats, to direct, and for Danielle to write?
You say, Danielle. I'm not.
So
I'm not
I
sure
think
really. I think I just got bored with stunts.
for me,
Yeah.
it's been an evolution. You know, I actually started as a dancer before I became a stunt woman. I've been an actor along for many years, and it just keeps changing and evolving. And I found myself more and more interested in the producing and writing aspect. And I realized somewhere along the way, all in all, at the end of the day, my love is for storytelling, and it's just been these different forms of storytelling. So all the years that I've spent on set and working with incredible directors, producers, actors, people like Andy Armstrong, who I met so many years ago, inspired me to start wanting to tell some of my own stories. And it's just a whole nother level of creativity. So Andy and I met, and he realized that I had this passion, and he really was encouraging that. He's been a huge champion for me in that way. And he had come from quite a background, not just of stunts, but from the directing side of things earlier in his career, and writing. He's been writing for such a long time. So that's how I ended up here. And really, it's got so much to do with this lovely gentleman sitting with me.
Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I think even my background during doing stunts or designing action stuff for movies, it was always from a point of telling a story. You know, I'm always very critical of movies that are just sort of action for the sake of it. I always wanted to have some story point be told through the action. Not always successfully, but that's always an aim, you know. So I think the same, really. I just always like telling a story.
Right. So directing this film and with Danielle also starring in it, was that, difficult since she was both on the creative side with writing it? Did that make things easier or more difficult?
Mm, I, for me, easier, I think, because we were creating a character that Danielle would play. And although we wrote together and sort of set it up as producers together, the moment we started really being ready to go to set and shoot, I sort of took all the other hats off and was just a director. Um, and I was able to do that because I was so well backed up with Danielle still playing a role, but also keeping an eye on where we were going with the story, sort of thing, and any rewrites and things. I deliberately didn't want to multitask once I got on the set. I wanted to just concentrate on the one thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. So unfortunately, I can't talk too much about the acting aspect because we're still on strike. So I am here today as a writer producer. But I can say that, wearing multiple hats definitely is challenging. But also really great, because being involved from the beginning, from a blank page, creating these characters, and also working with Andy and knowing his vision. So together we created it, and then all along, because Andy has such a clear vision, the entire time we were writing, he was communicating to me how he wanted to shoot it, the way that he saw it, and all these things. So when we showed up on set, he was able to put his director's hat on, and I hope that I was able to be there as that writer and producer to make sure and to keep watch, so that I could support the fact that his vision was actually coming through, that he was able to take the other hats off. Although I will say there were plenty of times during the shooting that we had to do some rewrites, and he was very quick to put the writer's hat on and always had amazing ideas. Even when I thought, like, oh my God, I don't know how we're going to do this, we need to do a quick rewrite, he would always be like, I know how to do it. So that was great. But the multiple hat thing definitely adds to the challenge, makes it more complicated. But also, I feel, in a way, I work better under pressure. I think Andy works well under pressure. And sometimes when you are under that amount of pressure and having to do so many things at one time and have your focus in so many places, somehow for me, there's like this magic that happens. And I can't quite explain it. But I think it's just, I think at some point you have to just trust all the work you put into it and surrender and let it happen and see what happens. And as challenges come, you just pivot and you go. And that keeps it maybe in the end from being too mechanical. It has a more organic, raw kind of feel to it.
Okay.
For me.
Let me say this. The movie is pretty brutal. I mean, it's there's some rough scenes in there. When filming those kind of things, I don't want to spoil anything. What were the main challenges?
I think it's the main challenge is just to sort of maintain the voice, or the same voice all the way through it, the same sort of story. And I think that's, for me, it made it much easier that we're following sort of one character, really, which is Danielle's character. We follow through the story, and we sort of see this world sort of unfold through her eyes. So I think that the challenge with these sort of movies is to maintain a consistent voice through it. I think that's where I've often seen movies that are great movies, but they sort of go off, you're not quite sure whose voice you're following. And I think the audience gets to see this world really through the Lisa character's eyes. And I think that I try to keep that at the sort of center of my attention all the way through the movie, to keep that singular voice, really.
And I would say, you know, for a lot of the more gruesome scenes that involved our actor Ronnie Gene Bevans, who played Squealer, you know, those were definitely some intense and tricky moments. But because we had such phenomenal actors, and not just Ronnie, but every one of our supporting cast and the other characters that were involved in those horribly gruesome scenes, I think they went off quite well just because of the level of professionalism. Everybody was very focused, and there was a lot of trust on the set. Ronnie is someone who is such a beautiful, brilliant human being and an actor. So he did a great job of making the other actors feel very comfortable. They felt very safe with him. Even though he's terrifying on screen, in person, he's like the sweetest man you've ever met. And he just seemed to have a way. And I know that there were moments where he struggled with some of it, you know, because it's upsetting, but he's just such a pro. And so we were very, very grateful and very blessed to have such professional, talented people working with us.
And he was fantastic in his part. He killed it, if you want to put it that way.
He really did.
Yes, he did.
We almost lost him before we started shooting. You know, there was a period where he suddenly wasn't available. He was doing a much bigger movie somewhere, and we were sort of lost for a second, because I just couldn't have imagined anybody else. You know, we'd written it with him in mind, and he owned that role, and somehow the stars all aligned, and he came back. He was available to us, and it was I couldn't imagine who we'd have done the movie without him. He was just, you know, he really owns that role, and he just brought more to it than was on the page. It's just a very, very special interpretation of the character, because he's a very likable, sort of gentle guy, right up to the point that he kills you. I like that sort of contradiction of values. He really he was the character that we hung everything on the sort of making of the movie.
Yeah, he was wonderful at it. He really did, you know, amazing. And I enjoyed the movie, and it had a great story. And I like that touch of true crime, because I'm a little bit of a true crime nut. Right. So, I mean, you know, it felt familiar without being disrespectful.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, as a horror fan, it was nice to see the blood and guts song. So,
yeah.
Well, I always like to say, Andy would always say through the process, you know, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly bear. So we're like, okay, where it comes to the gruesome thing, let's try not to shy away from it.
Yeah, right. we tried to sort of, if there was going to be blood and guts, let's make them absolutely revolting. You know, that's the sort of approach that we had to everything on the movie. It's
yeah, I definitely got that right.
Yeah, there's not many cuddly parts.
But yeah, the movie is great, and I can't wait for us to talk with our readers about it. And I appreciate y'all taking time to talk with me so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it too.
And I can't wait to see what y'all's next project is.
Thank you.
Thank you, and y'all have a happy Halloween.
You too.
Happy Halloween to you too.